Much better for the Pacers against the Magic, and yet still just barely not quite enough as they lose in the final seconds. Paolo Banchero late. The Pacers offense falls apart in the fourth quarter. There's some petty nonsense, lineup changes that were very significant. Oh, man, a lot to get to on today's Locked On Pacers podcast.
You are Locked On Pacers, your daily Indiana Pacers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, everybody? Happy Thursday, Happy New Year, and welcome into another edition of the Locked On Pacers podcast, where we, of course, talk about the Indiana Pacers. As always, my name is Tony East. I cover the team for Forbes and Circle City Spin. And today, oh, man, Pacers better against the Magic. They're ahead for a lot of the game, a double-digit second-half lead, a fourth-quarter lead, and then they score 15 points in the final frame, give up their lead. Paolo Banchero scoring in the final 10 seconds, and the Pacers have lost 10 times in a row, followed by a very revealing press conference with discussions of petty nonsense, some shifts in lineups during the game, all very, very interesting, all very fascinating, and yet I say progress for the Pacers in this one, as a lot was much better than it has seemed or appeared in recent games. The place to start with this one, though, as it has been for the Pacers often this season, is the end of the game. The Pacers enter the fourth quarter, and I really think just before the fourth quarter is where this chat should start, because the Pacers are up about 10 late in the middle / late third quarter. I want to say it was 87-77, and that is wrong. It was 87-78. And then it was 88-78. The Pacers are up 10 with about 5 minutes to go in the third quarter. Mathurin was on the floor. Bradley was on the floor. Siakam was on the floor. Nembhard was on the floor. Mostly starters were in the game. And Aaron Nesmith was on the floor. And those guys subbed out with about a 9-point lead after Ben Mathurin hit a technical free throw. And the Magic slowly, against the bench, cut it down to 1 going into the fourth quarter. And that was a key stretch because the Pacers vibe and confidence kind of dropped. But in the fourth quarter, their performance just died. I mean, they were playing, I would not call it an exceptional offensive game, but pre-fourth quarter, pretty good. I think they were making about 40% of their threes, about 50% of their shots. Outside of rebounding, they were doing so much better than the Magic. And then they get to the fourth. Fourth quarter Pacers, 5 for 17 from the field. That is already bad. The Magic shot 36% in the fourth quarter and were 7% better than the Pacers at 8 for 22. The Pacers, who were, again, shooting pretty well throughout the game, 1 for 8 from deep in the fourth quarter, the one make coming from Aaron Nesmith. Ben Mathurin, who was having a pretty jumper game, 0 for 2. Jay Huff missed 1. Pascal Siakam missed 1. Ben Shepherd, who was having a nice jumper game, missed 1. Micah Potter missed 1. 5 turnovers for the Pacers in the fourth quarter. They were doing pretty well taking care of the ball throughout the game. 16 is their final tally. They had 11 in the first 3 quarters, then 5 in the fourth. The Magic did not play that well in the fourth quarter. They scored 18 points in the final period. The Pacers were winning going into the fourth and then gave up 18 points in that fourth quarter. Those two things in tandem should be a win. You score 18 fourth quarter points as the Pacers, you win. You break your losing streak. And they could not do it. And they played their best guys. Ben Mathurin, 9.5 minutes, goes 0 for 3 with 2 points at the foul line. Andrew Nembhard plays 9 minutes, actually goes 3 for 4. In the fourth quarter with 6 points. Pascal Siakam plays 10 minutes, goes 1 for 3. They just couldn't make anything. And there were a few shots that they can make. This is a rare time that I think the just missed thing is true. They had open threes that didn't drop. They had 2 shots right at the basket that could have gone in that didn't. And that is part of this. They missed shots that can go in. That's important. They lost the game as a result of that. But there were also lots of little things throughout the game that just were not correct, including that late third stretch, some clunkiness in the first half. Their defense in the first half was not very good after being much better in the second half. Just some general disconnections in play that made it so a 15-point fourth quarter was the cause of death for their chances of winning. I don't even know that I would look at the fourth quarter and go, wow, one player was just so awful. They were 0 for 7 to start the fourth before Andrew Nembhard got to the cup and scored. Many of the looks were good and just didn't go in. If you're at a computer right now listening to this, open up the Pacers shot chart from the fourth quarter. All threes, all right at the rim, or 3 baseline jumpers, and I guarantee you already know who took them. One was Andrew Nembhard, which was an ugly shot at the top of the backboard. That was his only miss. The other 2 were the exact guys that you'd want to take mid-range shots as the Pacers. It was Pascal Siakam. So they just, I hate to say this, make or miss league, they missed. The Magic missed too. They just missed a little less. And then it comes down to 2 plays late, and 2 things are important about these late plays. They get to about, I can't remember when the 5th foul was for Pascal Siakam, but that's a very important play for crunch time. He is guarding Paolo Banchero for a good chunk of the game. He's the right size to do it. Not a particularly awesome Paolo Banchero game until late. His 4th foul came with 6:35 to go, and Siakam's 5th foul came after that. So down the stretch, Aaron Nesmith is guarding Banchero and doing mostly a pretty good job, but he is much smaller, like 4 or 5 inches being given up there. And so Mathurin ties the game with 29 seconds to go. Magic take a timeout. Paolo gets a clear out from the left wing, uses his power to get in closer, then uses a really quick and nice spin move to get just a little bit of space to get by Nesmith. Nesmith fouls him. He hits the shot. Really impressive move. So I'm not saying that Siakam would have stopped him, but having more height would have been helpful to be a deterrent on that particular play. Banchero did have 8 fourth-quarter points on 4 for 8 shooting. His type of game, he finished with 29. I said earlier, it didn't feel like he had that great of a game. He did. He played pretty well. He had 29 and 10, but they were limiting him in enough ways in this game that didn't feel so dominant. He had 5 turnovers. His defense was actually just as effective as his offense to me, but he really came alive in the 4th, and that was a big part of it, is that they couldn't keep Siakam on him, and that was a detriment of Siakam for fouling, often Paolo Banchero himself. Then, so now the Magic lead. Banchero actually misses the free throw, so there's not going to be any foul-up 3 shenanigans from the Magic. The Pacers are going to get a shot up, and they try to go to Siakam as they do, and there's nothing there, and the Magic blow it up with heady switching and preparation, and Nesmith gets it super far from the basket, like 30-plus feet away from the rim, and he told us post-game he thought there was less time left in the game, which makes good sense because he is far. I mean, this is a 32-footer, and he gets close. He hits the rim. It looks like it might go in when it's in the air for a second, but just off from Nesmith. Not the shot you want. You'd like it to be a little, more respectable 3, or, somewhat, it's like a more normal 3 than a deep. And if there was one thing left, yes, shoot that shot. He admitted that himself. So those last 2 crunch time plays that shouldn't have been necessary if the Pacers had a normal offensive quarter were the final nail in the coffins for the Pacers, who once again were close. And now I believe that's 6 games this season that have come down to the final shot. They've lost 5 of them. That would be Paolo Banchero tonight, Giannis in Indy, Jalen Brunson in Indy, Siakam, of course, the game winner against the Bulls. And why am I forgetting one? Shea had a bunch late in that opener against OKC, and I'm somehow forgetting one more buzzer beater that sunk the Pacers this season, I believe. And Nesmith missed at the buzzer in Dallas. I can't believe this. I know I'm forgetting one. Whatever. They've had a lot of games decided on the last shot, and they have not gone in their favor. That's how it goes. You don't want the game to come down to the last shot. And the Pacers made it so with their poor fourth quarter offense, which is a shame because a lot of the rest of their game was good. But you can't put it up to that. You don't want to put it up to that, and they did. And that's 10 in a row. 10 losses in a row. And every time it's been something different, at least of late. And that is something to me that is becoming weirdly concerning, is that, sometimes/often the worst teams in the league, and the Pacers have the 30th offense, so that's part of this. The worst teams in the league have like a thing where every night they have no chance because of this or that. And the Pacers, think of their recent games. This game they just lost. 15 fourth quarter points. Offense falls apart. After what I would consider a pretty good offensive game, they had 95 points through 3 quarters. And they were looking good on that end of the floor, making shots, moving the ball. Aaron Nesmith added some pop. That's great. And the game before that, they lose in in Houston. Has nothing to do with their fourth quarter offense. It was the rebounding. They got their butt kicked on the glass. 27-13 at halftime on the glass. In Miami, fourth quarter, their defense was a mess. They gave up 50 points in the final 13 minutes. Right? Against Boston, same thing. It was defense that night. Milwaukee, they couldn't score. Boston before that fell apart after shooting well to start the game. Pelicans, it was early defense. I mean, it's something different every night. That's a problem. That is a sign of a bad team, and that's what's happened when you've lost 10 in a row. But man, is it painful for the Pacers to go through this again and again and again. And here it is for the 10th time in a row. They just can't quite get it done. Brandon Ingram is the buzzer beater, I forgot, by the way. So 5 times they've been on the wrong end of one. One time they've been on the right end. And the margins between winning and losing are that. The margin for error, as Rick Carlisle likes to say, is very small for this team. If you have a bad couple of minutes of offense, or you have a starting lineup that stinks in the middle of the second quarter for a second, we'll get to that. Or if you have these petty nonsense things happening, as he described post-game, like those, if you get blown out, those things hurt, but they don't cost you the game. When you lose by 2 in the final seconds, if those things are worth a point a quarter, it did cost you the game. Alas, 6-28 are the Pacers. 10 losses in a row, 2 away from the franchise record. Yikes. So much to get to from this game. Lineup changes with pretty significant effect. Petty nonsense cited post-game. What? What is this? I'm not going to guess, but I'll kind of guess. We'll talk about that coming up here on Locked On Pacers. But first, everybody, very quickly need to tell you about Gametime during basketball season. There is nothing like being in the building, the energy of the crowd, the first big run that gets everybody on their feet. Fans want to be there for those moments, not stuck refreshing screens or guessing what tickets are really going to cost. That's where Gametime comes in. The Gametime app gives fans the advantage back, making it incredibly easy to score amazing tickets, fast, simple, without any guesswork. Browsing the Gametime app is straightforward and intuitive. Finding tickets takes just a few taps. You can see the view from your seat before buying them. The prices include the fees up front, so you're not surprised at the end. They have zone deals where you can kind of pick where you want to sit, and they'll say, okay, this seat's really good. Whether it's an NBA game or a different live event, everything is right there in one place. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONNBA. That's LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Download the Gametime app today and get in on the action. Again, that's on Gametime. We are back here on Locked On Pacers. Thanks for making this your first listen today and every single day, your second listen. Philip Rossman-Reich, the GOAT of Locked On Magic. I'm sure he'll be telling you a lot about Paolo, who I probably undersold in that first segment. His game didn't feel like a 29-10 game. He did play very well. About Paolo and Jalen Suggs returning from injury and laboring through a game and making a lot of big defensive plays. And Anthony Black, my draft crush from a few years ago, just hooping. Philip's the best. Met him in Indy last year. We met in Orlando a few years ago. Anyway, I don't need to tell you about Philip Rossman-Reich. I need to tell you about the Pacers. Big shift in this game. Jay Huff starts again. I mean, this is how long is this? How long does this become a slump? And it's like you have to make changes thing, because Jay Huff was really good in late to mid-November, right? He had that 20-point game against Charlotte, and that was kind of around the time this started where all the discussion was like, wow, the zone that keeps him around the basket's really good, and his defense in the paint has been really awesome. He should definitely be starting. He's the best fit with this group. And then the trade deadline first discussion comes because December 15th, and it's like, okay, he's clearly the starter. This is great. And now I'm like, man, this is a rough run of play. I mean, he's been in double digits once since December 14th when he had 13 in the game. They got blown out against the Wizards. In that stretch entering today, he was shooting in the last 7 games, 38.5% from the field, 18.8% from deep. And he has not made 50. He's made 50% of his shots once in that stretch. In the month of December, he's made 50% or better of his shots 4 times. 4 times that has happened. And it was better. He was much better to start the month, to be clear. But he's now at, I would say, about 3 weeks of like much, much worse play than he was having earlier this season. So he starts the game again. And like, I get why they're doing it. He, in theory, could be the best fit with that group. And he misses his first shot, and he had 2 quick fouls and a steal, and he was minus 17 in the first half. And the foul trouble was a part of this, but he was not very effective. And Tony Bradley comes in, and Tony Bradley was Tony Bradley. Every time Tony Bradley plays, he's Tony Bradley. I love that about him. And he plays for 6 minutes. And then Micah Potter comes in. And whoa, what's happening here? Micah Potter and Ben Shepherd and TJ McConnell and Jarris Walker, and then whatever fifth starter was with them. Sometimes it was Nesmith, sometimes it was Mathurin, sometimes it was Siakam, whoever it was, were just awesome. Like a marquee, awesome level lineup. Ben Shepherd made every shot he took in the first half. Micah Potter was setting some screens and had 2 assists. Micah Potter was plus 17 in the first half. He just moves well. He doesn't get in the way because he can shoot and he knows how to pop. Even if he's not guarded, that's like better spacing than a guy who doesn't know how to pop. He tries on defense, even though he's shorter for a center, and like he made stuff happen. And Johnny Furphy plays the first 5 minutes of this game. He commits 2 fouls. Out he goes. Aaron Nesmith comes in, and then they just do Nesmith, and Jarris Walker had a pretty solid game. They just stuck with those 2 on the wing, especially with Shepherd back. And so the second half starts, and out comes Aaron Nesmith and Micah Potter. And I noticed this change because I don't recall this happening very often, but the team comes out at halftime. They go through halftime warm-ups, they talk, and then the 5 huddle up kind of in front of the Pacers bench, a little farther out on the court than that. And they're like having a powwow, a chat. And I'm like, those are 2 not starters in that group. Lo and behold, out they come. So Nesmith starts the second half. Micah Potter starts the second half. And they were both, I mean, Aaron Nesmith starting is probably going to happen in the next game. Now, you'd think after something like this, but both played solid games. Like, it made perfect sense. It took till mid-4th quarter to go back to Jay Huff, who then missed 2 shots again. Tony Bradley plays 5 minutes in the second half. Less whelming, does that mean to say, from him in the second half? But you know, they just couldn't. They couldn't find the right combo of centers with Huff struggling and Bradley being what he is, and Micah Potter was their answer. I mean, I'm not saying he's going to be on the team after the cut deadline coming up in a week. I just talked about this. But, I mean, this feels a little Kiefer Sykes-y right now, where he just had a 6-assist game in Houston. James Wiseman's not on the team anymore. But, like, James Wiseman never in his career had a 6-assist game. I don't mean that to dump on James Wiseman. James Wiseman's good at things that Micah Potter is not good at. I'm just saying, like, you don't just stumble into a 6-assist game. He takes and makes threes enough that they're letting him shoot them, and he tries enough on defense to make up for his lack of size. Micah Potter was not in the league for a reason, but he's playing pretty well. If he does it again a few more times, you're going to have to think about it, right? You're going to have to think about keeping him. We'll see. I don't want to overreact to one game. Kiefer Sykes played well for like 6 games in a row. They kept him through the cut down deadline, and then he wasn't very good the rest of the season and did get cut before the season ended, right? Like, you just never know based on a small sample. Regardless, I'm getting ahead of myself. Micah Potter was good in this basketball game, right? He just straight up was. And so they started him in the second half, and it worked. I mean, that group was overwhelmingly solid. The rotational balance was a little different and goofy. Like, they were relying on Furphy didn't play at all. They were relying on they had different needs from their wings. So Jarris Walker wasn't getting as many touches. Shepherd, after a really good first half, wasn't as good in the second half. It was his first game back from injury, whatever. But it was all very, very interesting to see it go that way. The most minutes by any Pacers lineup in this game was Mathurin, Potter, Nesmith, Nembhard, Siakam. 10 minutes and 22 seconds. That group was plus 13. Wow. So Nesmith, everybody knows. He's good. He's one of the best 4 players on the team. Yeah, he's going to start. Like, once he's healthy enough, and the minutes restriction appears to be peeling away with how much he played today, he's going to start, probably in their next game, I would guess, right? At center, I mean, Huff hasn't played well for a while. If they want to give Potter a shot, especially before they have to make a decision on his future, I mean, maybe they'll go back to this. I don't know what I would do as the Pacers. I think I would probably try to get Huff going again. But if they think Potter's better, I'm not going to tell them that's a stupid idea. I mean, the nominal starting 5 in this game with Nesmith in instead of Furphy. So Siakam, Nembhard, Nesmith, Huff, Mathurin. That group was their second most used lineup. It played 5.5 minutes. They're -4. It's just worse, right? The Furphy starting lineup was -8 in 2 minutes and 23 seconds. So I'm not saying the starting lineup was the problem in this game, but very noteworthy changes from the Pacers, and their second half defense was much better, and their second half offense was much worse. So do with that information whatever you want. But I do think it's telling that they made those decisions given how the team has played of late, and given that we all knew eventually there and Eastman would start. But Micah Potter played very, very well, right? And he deserved that. And J Huff came in after not playing for much of the half, came back into the middle / late fourth and just missed some shots and didn't do enough, and he came right back out. Bradley was in late in the third quarter, had a very solid stretch, and then Goga just started cooking him and dunking all over everything. So maybe this is what they'll go with. I mean, truly, maybe it is. And I don't even think that's going to be a problem. I think it's fine, and if Potter doesn't go very well, great. They'll try Huff, they'll try Bradley. Maybe Jackson will come back. If they had Isaiah Jackson in this game, I bet they win, right? So that's how the cookie crumbles. Okay, let's get to some other stuff from this fall from ahead loss for the Pacers. Again, let's start with Ben Shepherd before we open the notebook about non-Ben Shepherd guys. In the next segment, Ben Shepherd was back from injury in this game. Shepherd Island got some lovely resources, both in that the namesake of the island was playing again and that he played quite well. 2 for 3 from deep was Ben Shepherd. That's obviously important in a season where he can't make anything. And he made a floater and another driving layup where he got goaltended. He beat his man so bad. What? Where is this coming from? Playing a little sleeve on that calf that has him banged up. He looked very spry. He led the bench in scoring. He had more points than Aaron Nesmith, who played 31 minutes, including the closing stretch of the game. This should not be the expectation for Ben Shepherd. He has very rarely played with that much pop and shooting in the same game on offense, but this is what they hope is possible for him as he adds more to his kind of toward the rim game. That was a big discussion point for me about him when he was really missing everything, is that he was adding some drives. Okay, if you take more twos than threes, and you make your threes and your minutes go pretty well, that player's going to play. So we'll see what holds here, but good news for the Pacers that he's back. I mean, he's the kind of guy that in a season like this, you should want to be playing all the time, right? A guy that you can see they're getting better. They clearly help you win at your best. What more can they take on, if anything? They're still young, so you can try to add to their game, but they're not so good that they're like really changing your fortunes. With absolutely no offense to Ben Shepherd, he should be playing, right? So welcome back from him as he hits a floater early. 10 points in 7 minutes and 18 seconds. His first stint of 8:27 was the full 12, beating guys off the bounce. Really, really good return from him. I wonder how much him being back and them having a more full complement of players led to their rotational confidence in making those kind of switches. Because as I've been harping on too much, probably just the second time all season tonight that they have had 6 of their top 9 players from last season available. And both games, they were tied and came right down to the wire. Like, they've been competitive in those games. Maybe this is a thing. Maybe they can actually build off this and get some wins. They did look much better in this game outside of the first 6 minutes of the fourth quarter and that stretch when the starters came in the second quarter. Yuck. That's coming up in my notes here, as well as many other things from this game. Ben Mathurin's goofy game. What is going on in the post-game press conference? And so much more as we close out today's Locked On Pacers. Before we get to any of that, we got to talk about FanDuel Fridays. Always feel different during basketball season. FanDuel's making them even better. Every Friday night before the games tip off, FanDuel gives fans a new way to kick off the weekend with NBA Happy Hour. NBA Happy Hour is your official pregame, a limited time window where special offers drop right inside the FanDuel app before the action starts. Fridays from 6 to 7:30 Eastern. That's appointment viewing now with NBA Happy Hour. Open the FanDuel app during Happy Hour. There's always going to be something new. Boosts, bonuses, surprises. It's easy to check the weekly special right before tip-off. The timing is perfect right before the games. It adds extra energy to Friday night basketball without overthinking it. So, before tip-off, check the FanDuel app. See what's dropping during NBA Happy Hour every Friday from 6 to 7:30 p.m. Eastern. A little basketball, a little action, and a whole lot of Friday energy. That's NBA Happy Hour only on FanDuel, the official sportsbook partner of the NBA. We're back here on Locked On Pacers. Thanks for making this your first listen today and every single day. Your second listen, Locked On NBA Game Night, to hear me talk about more of the games that happen around the NBA on New Year's Eve. Very nice win for the Cavs over their former assistant coach Jordan Ott as the Suns head to Cleveland, among many other things. You can hear that later. The Hawks without Trae Young win again. Interesting. Okay, let's keep going here. Lots to get to. Weird stretch was happening in the second quarter. The only other time the Pacers offense died in this game, and this was not make or miss. They just looked bad in the second quarter stretch. And it was after the starters came in. And this is the Nembhard stuff that I have been talking about, is I mostly think that his poor plus minuses when playing even with the Pacers' best players is kind of just bad luck. Like, why would he be making all these guys so subtractive? But in the middle of the second quarter, the thing I keep talking about that I do think is poor for him is his shot selection sometimes. It's just not where it needs to be. He's taking mid-rangers he shouldn't. He's not getting all the way to the rim, and the offense looks clunkier when he's out there and a little slower, especially when contrasted with the best McConnell stretches, of which the early second quarter was one, as the Pacers built like an 8 or 9 point lead, and then they really couldn't score for a healthy stretch of the second quarter, right? Siakam hits a running layup to put him up 7. Siakam scores again to put him up 5 with 6 minutes to go. Siakam for 3 puts him up 6 with 5:30 to go, and then they just can't score at all, and the Magic take a 7-point lead into a Pacers timeout. Micah Potter comes in with 6 minutes to go. And then what happens is everything changes. Pascal Siakam gets closer to the basket, turns around, hits a shot he's hit a million times. Andrew Nembhard gets all the way to the rim with a driving layup and scores. Andrew Nembhard gets all the way to the rim and finds Pascal Siakam for a 3. Nembhard hits a pull-up that is different than all the rest of the shots I'm talking about. Andrew Nembhard all the way to the cup for a 3-foot layup. You get the gist. When he is really focused on a full to-the-basket drive, and he's taking the right shots, he's way better at like functionally running the offense. And you saw both sides of that in one quarter. It was way better. And then the second half, he was eons better than he even was in the first half of the same game. And that's what's something really interesting about him this season is he has a lot of games where one half feels like he is feeling the game out and he's playing very poorly. And then the second half, for example, today, 6 for 8, 3 assists, no turnovers, 13 points, 3 assists, no turnovers in the second half for Nembhard today. But a really clunky one stretch makes the game just feel so weird. So he has got to keep doing that. He's got to cut out some of these mid-range shots. But I thought that was very noteworthy that he had a quiet part that went poorly and then a loud part that went poorly throughout this game. Okay. What happened here post-game? Some of this would be conjecture or guessing. I'm not going to do that. But Rick Carlisle comes up, and I wanted to ask him about the fourth quarter offense. That to me was the thing that was the most pressing thing. You just scored 15 points in the fourth quarter in a loss. And he said, well, that's probably not what you should be asking about. And then he said, instead, what was noteworthy to him was in the first half, the Pacers gave up 68 points. In the second half, they gave up 44 points. And that's true. Their defense was much better. And he used that difference as a launching point to say that in the first half, the Pacers were not playing like a supportive team. He said in the second half, we played like a together team that was supporting each other and not like strangers. That's how this has got to be. We're having too much petty nonsense going on during games that needs to go away. Whoa, that's very revealing and telling, especially after a tight game loss like that. So then I said, can you provide specifics on that? And he said no, which I expected, but I wanted to know. And then I said, okay, well, what did you see better in that second half on defense? Like what actually went away for your team that made it better? And he said, we were concerned with the play that was happening right now and the play that was going to be immediately happening next, and not whether or not we were touching the ball or getting a shot or not getting a shot, that kind of stuff. It's not what this organization is about. It's not what this team is about. It's not what this franchise is about. It's not what this ownership has stood for more than 4 decades. Everything from the little distractions with officials to everything else, that stuff has got to go away. Wow. Wow. Big statement. Very telling, calling out of that kind of behavior that he does not want to see. Aaron Nesmith, I asked him about it. He said there may have been some petty nonsense, but I think it comes from a good place. I think our competitive spirit in this game was pretty high. Sometimes that bleeds over into disagreeing on calls or guys help. Guys are tired of losing. I do agree with that. I think you've seen a lot of the losing frustrations boil over to this team. For example, holy moly, Pascal Siakam fake and throwing the ball in the crowd in their home game before this. Like, you can see it. You can just see their faces. You can hear that Pascal postgame and Rick say this postgame, right? You can just see it. So I think that is very telling. And I don't think we'll ever know exactly what he's talking about, but I'll say this. It's very telling that game, I'm not going to say anything about one player because there's 3 guys here. 2 guys got benched. Johnny Furphy got benched and Jay Huff got benched. And Ben Mathurin had to play in the third quarter where he just lost Anthony Black on a back cut. And then immediately the Pacers, 7 minutes-ish to go in the third quarter. And Rick and Carlisle immediately takes a timeout and goes right to Mathurin with a verbal complaint. And he stayed in the game. So, like, that kind of stuff happens from a lot. He does that to other players, too. But that was the only one I noticed from this game. But they had twice in the first half where they just lost an offensive player completely. One was Wendell Carter just walking to the rim. He's wide open. So there's so many little things that happen in this game that I'm like, I have no prayer of guessing who this is about. Or if it's about a collection of players or whatever's going on. But it's not good. It's rotten for a team that has lost 10 games in a row. And they need to clean it up. Because clearly if they figured out an attitude change in the second half, or if it was just better players or better lineups, whatever, they were better. They just played better. And they need to summon that more often. And we'll see if this is a continuing trend. If they make some real changes in the next game that look promising, I think we'll know that some of those changes are perhaps related to what I'm talking about. Speaking of Aaron Nesmith, he played a lot in this game. That's good. Him playing a lot will make the Pacers better and make them learn things about their team. He didn't make that many shots. He was 9 points on 11 shots in this game, but 10 rebounds, 3 steals. He was plus 10. He's just such an energy giver. I don't think of him as a guy who is like adding pace. He adds pace. He runs fast. He disrupts defense. He recovers to draw a charge on Tristan da Silva after stopping a different action in the same possession. He just battles. That's contagious, and that just gives energy to everybody and adds pace to the game, which was contrasted with Johnny Furphy having 2 early fouls and not even returning to the game. I want to dig more in on that in the future, but he only played 5 minutes. Jarris Walker, pretty good game. Followed up the game where I said, oh, man, if he could play in Houston all the time, that'd be great. Well, he was good in this game, 4 for 7 with 9 points, 4 boards. I thought he was pretty steady and dialed in for all of his minutes. In this game, he was very active. That's good. He's had 2 encouraging games in a row. He always has possessions that make you go, wow, look what he can do at his best. And sometimes he has possessions that make you go, ugh, the worst is just terrible for him. But no turnovers. Like, he kept a lot of those plays out of this game. So a pretty good one for them. 2 more guys to talk about, and that is their ISO scores for different reasons. Pascal Siakam, I thought most of my notes for him were about defense. He was doing very well. He had a couple great reps against Banchero when he wasn't fouling him early, but the 5th foul really hurt. They had to move him on to Jamal Cain. I already mentioned that Nesmith came on to Banchero, and that was like a very crucial shift late in this game. Shout out to Jamal Cain, by the way. If you just find these players and they could turn into solid guys, 11 points for him in this game, that can change your whole season. Credit to the Magic for that. Siakam started 1 for 5. I think that is something that you should know if you look at his box score from this game. First quarter, he had 5 points on 1 for 5 shooting and no other stats, period, at all. He didn't have a rebound, an assist, anything. So him finishing with 26 points on 9 for 20, that means he was 8 for 15 the rest of the way with 21 points, 4 rebounds, 2 steals, and a block in the last 3 quarters. He really picked it up after a slow start, which was big for the Pacers. Ben Mathurin, the last guy from this one, I have some notes on. His jumper looked like it had more arc in this game. Maybe I'm tripping, but he was like dotting some threes. He made 2 of them in this game on his 10 shots. And his free throws were gorgeous. 13 for 13 at the foul line. That's huge. 3 of those were technical fouls on the Magic. That was huge. His jump shot was working, and he needs that to get some points on the board if the toe's really bothering him for some of these drives. But he lost his man on a switch at one point. That ended up with a wide-open Desmond Bane 3. And he had another play where he scored. Slick shot in the lane. Awesome drive. And I'm typing that. Ben scores, slick shot. And then I have a comment, a bunch of goofy spaces because I'm like pulling my hand away and then put it back. And it says, but then gets beat up the floor easily as Jalen Suggs drives to the rim. Jalen Suggs missed the layup. Like, just a goofy game for him where some of the best stuff he does was really working, and some of the worst stuff for him, habits that he's had for a while, also a problem in this game. Doesn't get easier for the Pacers. The Spurs at home, this same Magic team in Orlando, Cleveland. If they lose all three of those games, they'll have the longest losing streak in franchise history. And we'll be covering it all right here on Locked On Pacers into 2026. Thank you guys so much for listening. You can find me on social media at Tony R. Reese and this podcast at Locked On Pacers. Back tomorrow talking more about this team. Till then, everybody have a wonderful day.